This is Journeys of Empowerment. More than a podcast, it's a circle of belonging. A space where lived stories become turning points and clarity grows through reflection. I'm Michiel Sujit Rijt, and here we do not rush to answers. We slow down, listen deeply, and realign with what is true. Before we begin, I want to welcome our brand new sponsor and partner, Reinforcer.ai. Your managers give feedback every day. The question is whether that feedback is actually working. You have seen this before. New processes are introduced. Training happens. And still, adoption stalls. Safety drops. Momentum fades. Not because people do not care, but because leaders do not know what is really driving the behavior they see. Reinforcer.ai helps leaders understand what triggers behavior, what reinforces it, and what needs to change. It analyzes everyday conversations in one-to-ones and team meetings and gives managers concrete guidance. What reinforced the right behavior, what missed the mark, and exactly what to focus on next time. Built on proven behavioral science, Reinforcer.ai makes behavior change measurable, practical, and part of daily work. So progress does not depend on good intentions, but on better feedback. If you want to improve behavior, where it actually forms, you can learn more at Reinforcer.ai. Some questions arrive softly, but they change everything when we let them in. And maybe the most radical one is this. What if it actually all works out? Not perfectly, not without challenge, but in a way that brings us closer to who we were always meant to be. In this episode, I sat down with Mirjam Heldmann, a trail ultrarunner and deep democracy facilitator, whose life moves between intensity and intuition. Adopted as a baby and raised in the German Alps by loving Buddhist parents, she grew up with a sensitivity that shaped her long before she had words for it. We talked about how running became her way back to herself at 14, a practice that still anchors her nervous system and her spirit. We explored the complexity of adoption, the quiet layers of belonging and trust that lives underneath it, and the deep democracy work that she now brings into groups, helping people hear what's said and unsaid. And we reflected on how the body becomes a compass through breath, movement, and even cold water, guiding her into presence. As Mirjam said, what if it actually all works out? And the line I'll be carrying is her reminder that trust grows when you stay with discomfort instead of checking out. Let's walk into it. Good morning, Mirjam. Welcome to Journeys of Empowerment.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Already a deep dive jump before we started, right? Oh, it's going to be interesting. Mirjam, we've met at only a few weeks, 2 weeks ago, at the Culture Code organized by House of Inclusion of one of my best friends and her business partner, Danielle and Sasha. And I instantly became curious about who you are, and only to discover later on in our pre-video call that we stumbled upon what I love to call synchronicity. So we will elaborate and then circle back in this conversation. But I'm so happy that I invited you out of curiosity. So over to you. Who are you becoming?
Thank you, and I really love the question. Who am I becoming? I think fully myself. I think actually that's the biggest journey, and there can be outer things, but in the end you always encounter again the inner parts and actually yourself. So I think for me it is still unfolding where I actually hold myself back. So I always end up again just with myself. And per year I don't really do New Year's resolution, but because we're at the end of the year, I do usually themes come up for the next year, and it's usually one theme. So for this year it has been, what if it all works out?
What if?
Yeah.
What if?
We talked about that
earlier.
But
if then versus what if.
Yeah, so what if it actually all works out? it's the theme, and I just circle back on this. It's a real natural process. It just here and there things remind me of it, or like, so that, you know, there's so much uncertainty, there's so many things changing, but it's always the what if I actually just lean back and be like, what if it all works out? So I think that is still for 2025 what I'm becoming.
And why do you think that became a theme? What do you think? What kind of nudges or situations or conversations or meeting with people or while doing your ultra running or whatever? Where did you? Well, how did you came up with it?
Yeah, they just come up themselves. So it is a level of synchronicity. I start to see a specific theme mirrored to me everywhere. So I don't really look for it. It will come up itself, and it always comes up in the end of the year. So the year before, it was self-love, because it came up everywhere. Self-love this, self-love that. And I was like, at some point I realized I don't understand it. I understand the word. I can read a book, and I'm like, I nod my head. And I realized I have no idea what it actually means. I don't feel it whatsoever. There's nothing happening in my body. I'm like, what I love myself, like, okay, so what? So that became the theme of 2024. And I went on a running adventure, that was with wild camping and running and tent and like really, really outside my comfort zone, alone. And on the first day, as I was running with a 10-kilo backpack through Scotland, I realized I was like singing and laughing and whistling. And I thought, I had so much fun with myself. And I realized like, that it was so, like, I mean, if I would have met myself, I would have absolutely loved that woman who just does shit like that. And I was like, this is what it means for me. And then, you know, I might as well read up on it a little bit and like dive into it. So it's the theoretical part, but also just what resonates. And I realized, just treating yourself like you would your best friend. And that became self-love for me. But so the topics kind of, I can't grasp it. They just come up
from within.
Yeah. And I don't know what it's going to be for next year. I'm not there yet. It will manifest in the next, still have a few weeks.
Do you even have, after that profound realization, wow, this is for me what it means, do you have now for yourself also a sort of, definition of understanding of what self-love for you truly is and means?
Yeah, it is treating myself like I would treat my best friend. So really actually also acknowledging that I really like myself, and that's also new. I can really say, actually, of course we could always change something, and it's always be changing the whole time. And it's not that I always look at myself and think, oh, wow, you like the best, but I might as well treat myself like that. Oh. Many days now. I mean, I genuinely like myself. It doesn't mean that anything is perfect. It doesn't have to be.
Perfection is an illusion anyway.
Well, it's also very boring.
It's
very boring.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very boring goal. But look, my best friend is also not perfect, and I absolutely, truly love her to bits.
It's funny that for me, the definition of self-love, while I was listening to your sort of definition or understanding, is my mantra: extreme self-care without being selfish. Say what? Extreme self-care without being selfish. Extreme self-care without being selfish.
I like that it starts with extreme.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we will dive into that one. That's interesting. That's the easiest part. Of course, it will resonate with someone who's doing extreme sports. So we will get there.
Oh, this sounds interesting. And then I'm trying to unfold the rest. Yeah. I think having the space, I think it's good in the extreme if it's not selfish.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
not rigid.
No. And but it's okay to put yourself first without becoming selfish. And I think it's even so putting yourself first is taking care of yourself. looking after yourself, caring for yourself. And that's what the extreme self-care without being selfish became, why it became my mantra. Although navigating through bumpy life and still getting rid of unhealthy coping mechanisms, that mantra sort of was in the back of my mind. Okay, how is this an example of extreme self-care without being selfish? And but beautiful. So this year theme is unfolding now.
Yeah, it's still unfolding. What if it all works out? I think it also gives a level of being relaxed, that you sometimes can just lean back and just trust. It's actually a trust theme. So the themes are not always easy.
No.
So there is it sounds like all fluffy and nice, but there is the trust topic. And if it all works out, you might want to trust other people, but you really got to trust yourself. And that will forever stay the topic. It's always been the topic, and this is the theme.
But that's the fun of life, right? We are work in progress until the last breath.
Yeah.
I believe,
Yeah.
and I love to believe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, hey Michiel, you're now there, and you're becoming 85. Okay, so I'm now here, and this is me for the coming in my for 33 years. That's really that's not an attractive outlook, right?
Yeah. But I think people I don't know. I think people have different needs. I think we are all changing, but some people want a little bit more. I call them the movers, right? Like people who always move, and I think some people are maybe a little bit more comfortable with stagnation, or maybe crave that a bit more, hold on to it a bit more as much as possible.
Status quo.
Yeah.
Hold on to it.
Yeah. So for me, that's actually the most scary thing. I get really scared if it's very stagnant. So I better. Yeah, I work really well in movement.
I had that too. When things, it became very, for me, too much safety felt as unsafety. Too much the same felt as also unsafe, because when you get attached to things and it stays the way, and you think like, okay, this feels comfort. So, for instance, I really like a certain level of discomfort. And because when it comes too comfortable, you can lose that. It can be taken away from you. So for me, that was really also with conditional and unconditional love. For me, everything was conditional. So I never believed in unconditional love, and only to discover the love of my life, and now I do. But because, what you love, you can lose.
Very happy for you that you found that.
Yeah.
Because it's quite, it can be quite a journey.
And the love of my daughters and vice versa. And my friends, my chosen family. Sasha, if you listen to this, you are my sister. We adopted each other. And all my friends. Being surrounded in communities. For me, family equals community and community equals family. But in the past. So, what do you need and what do you value in life?
Jeez, big questions. What do I value and need? I value movement and development. I really value going deep. So all my friends, all my close circle, there's no shallowness. There's a lot of space to go really deep.
I didn't feel guilty by asking these two questions at all. I was like, hey, this is you, right?
Yeah. So I really enjoy that. On the, could be on a physical level, could be on a mental level. Like I've also always been like that. I like intensity, and I really need intensity. And actually what I need, I think what has given me a lot recently in the last few years is actually quite a lot of safety. So I currently live really safe and feel really safe. Could be physical, could be mental, could be my relationship, and in the relationships I have, sort of the setup and the life I created. And that has given me a lot of space to very safely and very relaxed look at big topics in my life. It also comes back to the, what if it all works out, or what if it's all okay kind of topic. Like, if I operate from a very relaxed nervous system, probably the most relaxed I can be, that is very healthy for me to, challenge myself, try new things. Also deal with uncertainty. It's very there's a bit of a safer nest at the moment, and that I think that does, it's really good for me. I can literally feel I hear you breathing, but it's relaxing, and I think that's very, very healthy for me to really grow into my full potential.
Beautiful. What makes it safe?
What makes it safe? One big thing is the love. I am with someone who really, really loves me, and it's so beautiful.
You glow.
Yeah. No, really. I mean, when you say the love of your life, I can completely, really resonates, and it's beautiful when you feel that, and when you meet someone where it's just, and it was from the first second. It sounds really cheesy. I'm not that cheesy, please, to anyone listening. But
it's better to never say something you're not, and to say it out loud, because then it's
No, but this is when you meet someone,
let it be
it's just
cheesy.
Let it be cheesy. But it's from the first second, I felt okay, there really is something, and I need to at least find out what it is, and I'm glad I did. So I think that's been very healing. Because it is this unconditionality that has been quite something to discover. I think it can be tempting to feel maybe just in case, let's run away. Or, maybe, we messed this up. And then, because it's I think I can be, if we spoke about this a bit earlier, can be, when you're used to discomfort, it can be easier. This can be sort of the easier to deal with than this complete, actually this feeling of total safety and love. For me, that can be more challenging. Yeah.
I do recognize that.
So they maybe almost sometimes just want to start a little revolution and all, blow it up, and then at least, then you can be busy fixing things, which is not what I want to do. But I think that love has given me a lot, and has also given me the space to look at, topics that are in my life that come back circling, where I think, okay, let's sit down, let's start therapy, let's look at things.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And when it comes to safety, is of course the people around you who are closest to you, which can help feel safe, but also within our body. What helps you to feel safe in your own body?
I feel actually really safe within my body. I really love my body. I really, really appreciate it. And by now, I think what makes me feel safe is also the relationship I have with my body.
Yeah.
It's not anymore in any way destructive. I now really look at the way my body is and feels and looks, and truly appreciate it. I truly understand that the different parts look this way because of what I ask of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it's not that I'm expecting myself to grow suddenly, but in the past, to give an example, right? Let's say I have pretty strong legs, and in the past, when I was younger, I might have looked at them, or I definitely looked at them being judging that or wanting it to be different. And now I look at them with, incredible joy and pleasure and a real appreciation. I mean, they've taken me to epic places, and I love that about it. So that has created enormous safety. I have to say, sometimes I find it very annoying that we still live in a space where you, for example, as a woman, are not necessarily safe. That you, for example, on a run have to look out, what kind of route do you pick? Just that we actually live in that reality, that can still really piss me off. It always has.
Are you sometimes, when you're on a run, experiencing kind of micro, not so nice things? What is happening around in the world, and men are harassing or whatever?
Not anymore, and for sure not in Amsterdam. I think Amsterdam is generally really safe, but it's also because I lived beforehand in London, and London is way bigger and just less safe because of that, and there's a lot more going on. It's way busier. So London was way more that, you would leave, let's say you go out, you would leave the night bus and you really check, who's around you, what's happening, better know where you're going. Just which is very common in very big cities. So it's more I feel more unsafe in my body from the outside, that I'm kind of aware of where I'm in space.
No, and I meant with my question even more within our body. So not only about our body, but so thank you for elaborating, but also within, what helps you to, when it comes to our nervous system on that level, what helps you to to feel safe.
It's an interesting question. I think maybe it's not even so much about safety for me, but to even feel myself a tool.
A tool. Yeah.
So for that, I really love ice baths.
Oh, wow.
I discovered them a few years. I always liked the cold.
Yeah.
I like also the weather we have right now. Right. I feel myself very well if it's cold. So I quite enjoy cold. I love cold water. Put me into a cold Atlantic Ocean. I mean, love it. Always have. So I thought I would like an ice bath, but it's been way more challenging than I thought. It's really scary for your nervous system, naturally. But this being 100% only in the moment, and that within 2 minutes you can have an absolute reset. So you might go in there feeling, I don't know, anxious or a bit all over, and you come out joyful and completely present. That's such a gift. And normally I get that from running, but if I have a day where I, for example, run and running doesn't do that, so I know, okay, a lot is going on. Like even running doesn't help. 2 minutes, for example, now when it's nice and cold, like in the local canal, and it's a complete reset. So getting back to myself, that's the safety part. Yeah, and that could be breathing. So running does all of that, right? It's outside, it's deep breaths. There's no distraction.
Movement.
It's movement. It's the landing of your feet on the ground. I think rhythm also does a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, I might as well also just jump up and down on the spot. Also does that, but like the combination of flowing, moving, breathing, landing. Maybe it's even cold, ideally. Mm-hmm. So that would be the perfect package. So running still has it all.
Yeah. Well, the last time I always end with a cold shower around about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes. And now this morning I challenged myself. Okay, can I have 6 principles for the podcast. Am I able, because the shower is getting colder right now, because the water is of course getting colder. So am I able to really relax and say my 6 principles? And it took me 3 times before I was used to the cold water, and then just relaxed saying out loud the 6 principles of the podcast. So I was like, hey, that's interesting. Eh? It's really, cold can really get a hold and a grip on you.
Yeah. And that's sure. Yeah. And I think what I find incredibly useful with an ice bath is that you consciously override your nervous system. And it's only your breath that keeps you in there. And I think that, of course you can replicate that everywhere else. If something is happening, like this awareness of your breath and the relaxation and complete discomfort, that's, and you can train that in these like short 2 minutes is nothing. Yeah. I mean, how often do we waste 2 minutes? But if you're in like a very cold water, 2 minutes is so long.
It is. You can't hide. Yeah. It is all over. It is pervasive.
Yeah. So it shows also nicely the sort of illusion of time. I mean, time is not it's not so fixed, right? No. Like if you do a plank, 2 minutes is long. If you're in an ice bath, it's extremely long.
It is. And where do you have that in Amsterdam? You can go to a place and just jump in it. Oh, really?
Well, there is a really beautiful place. It's called Hema in Amsterdam. really like it's a little jewel with sauna and ice bath. So I've discovered that, and I use it for my training as well as recovery.
Yeah.
But in winter, if you have any access to a canal,
then
just go in there, timer, 2 minutes, get out, and then take the warm shower and warm up.
Yeah.
So it's another thing that is actually free if you live in cold enough climate.
Interesting. Before we start unpacking further, also in your personal journey, also becoming is also a part of becoming is also what business side of mission you are on, and you're now doing 2 things, and those 2 things, in my opinion, says a lot about who you are and what you value. So, what are you doing business-wise?
Business-wise, so right now I work for an NGO called Oxfam, based in the Netherlands. They focus entirely on inequality. A lot in the Netherlands as well as worldwide. And that has been something that I always wanted to do. So I studied in London human rights, and I was via, tons of detours as life is. I ended up in this kind of role and environment and organization that I always want to be in. So that has been interesting, has taught me a lot. I think it's also has taught me a lot around different ways of working and being, and like they really operate from they call it the feminist principles. So how can you, not just, if you want to change things, right, you can't just replicate systems. You also need to, so there's more space to also look at like how do you do things. So it's this idea of like, how you do one thing, you do everything, right? I mean, there's not a separation. If you want to change the world, you got to change your own organization, how you do things yourself, but also literally yourself. So
change from within.
Change from within, yeah. So that has been beautiful, a lot of space to learn. And one of the things I came across there, so I was on a team working on cultural change. Mm-hmm. And the people that led that, Anna and Marion, they came from Deep Democracy. And it was my first introduction. I don't know if Deep Democracy says something to you.
No, it's not about me. It's more important that we elaborate a little bit more for our listeners.
Yeah.
And,
but it's...
yeah.
They led a session and there was a lot of tension in the room. Like, so much so that we had a complete polarization. I mean, we had 2 groups that didn't agree. And I thought, oh my God, there's going to be a fuck up. We're going to leave the room with even more conflict than there was already. And then they used a method of Deep Democracy. And by the end, because we had to make a decision, but it was like 50-50. And you
really
could feel,
black and white.
Yeah. Classical, where you feel like, okay, this is going nowhere. Mm. And I was really curious how they're going to do this. And by the end, you could feel that we had all decided on one thing and actually everyone was happy. And it was quite a process, and they used Deep Democracy, and I thought, oh, this is really interesting. There's like something, I could feel it physically, like everything in me I felt really alive and incredibly curious. So I had the pleasure of being around them more often and getting to know Deep Democracy, and then attending a training more in facilitation and Deep Democracy. And for me, that is like where a lot of things, when you really feel like things click, like the red line that you might see or not see in your life. All connect the dots. Yeah, but like all the dots are connecting.
Yeah, but before we dive into what it means for you, what is Deep Democracy? How does it work? What are the working principles?
So the idea, it comes from South Africa, and you basically, in a nutshell, you integrate minority voices. And by minority, I mean if you have, let's say, any group in a room, of course you have probably somewhere a majority, but you also have minorities. And if you make a decision, like how do you integrate all parts? And as a facilitator, you specifically also listen to the undercurrent and the things that are not being said. And if you pay good attention, you sometimes also feel that. You can feel that some things are not being said.
Mm. You can see it.
You can see it. Exactly. You can see it. You can feel it if you really pay attention to how people...
Body language.
Mm-hmm. That there's things that are not being said. And sometimes it might happen that you have a decision and everyone just nods their head, everyone agrees. But then within a week, somehow no one is actually behaving in the way that was agreed. And you wonder why, because we just made this decision, like what is happening, what went wrong? And it's because we didn't really integrate what was really going on. And it is still there, and it basically sabotages everything. And we see this, left, right, and center. Doesn't matter if it's your family or like a work environment, any kind of, more than one person, this behavior plays out. And deep democracy basically gave me finally a tool. I can see this, but now I can actually do something about it and can help a group to come to inclusive decisions that actually work for the entire group. So it's incredibly powerful for decision making, but also for conflict, because you bring above the waterline what is there and what not everyone, but you can feel it, and if you don't do anything with it, it will sabotage absolutely everything.
Is it a sort of lens?
Partially, it has a theory, and it is a lens, but it's also specific for group facilitation. It's a specific method you use.
What is I work long time in tech, SaaS, so we think in use cases. What is the ideal sort of use case situation where deep democracy is very well applicable?
A conflict. Maybe you have a team, where people literally can't talk to each other anymore, or tensions are so high it's incredibly unsafe, and you don't know anymore actually how to move further. Super useful. A decision-making process where you want to actually make a decision that will then be followed through because everyone carries it. And it's very much, there are no shortcuts, right? Sometimes you say like, okay, we just go low-hanging fruit, we just do this. Yeah, but if it's not fully integrated in the whole group, it won't work.
And what do people have to acknowledge before they think, hey, we might need help to get to a decision? What kind of acknowledgement do they have to be? What kind of state of mind do they have to? Because if you've never heard of deep democracy, how do you come off the concept of deep democracy?
Yeah, I think you can think of it as well, like if you have a team or any group of people and you want to work, your goal is obviously to be productive and work better together. Yeah, you have your vision, you have your project, and often why things don't work is because we don't work well together as a team. So if you have actually a safer team, by safer I mean that people feel good to be together. You work way more productive. So deep democracy can also help actually creating an environment where we feel, again, human and good together. So it within a few hours, sometimes you feel like how people treat each other and how people feel in a space is completely different. Because of that, you can have, completely different team meetings, things are actually said, things move forward. And by safer, it's also, for example, that you can admit that you made a mistake where no one is perfect, and what that costs you is tons of time repeating mistakes. So really, practically, you will be more productive, to say it that way, because you just work better together.
I'm reading now a book, surprisingly. It's called Meaningful Work. I think it will resonate with you because it's I will show it later on because it resonates, and especially when it also stumbled upon psychological safety and feeling safe to speak up and to be to agree to disagree and then find a way to make it workable, even though everyone has a sort of opinion. Some are conflicting, but in the end we have a certain goal and we have to accomplish it together as a team. So how are you going to make that work, right?
Yeah.
And so you're stepping into you're moving into this space or not, because it resonates so hard that was obvious. And what are you going to do with it?
Exactly, and that was exactly my question. So the entire year it felt like, or actually last year it felt a little bit like meeting my partner, something like a complete love of my life, but in a professional sense, where I felt like everything is coming together.
Lucky you.
Yeah, thank you.
Serendipity.
Yeah, where it felt like, the question I ask myself is, would I regret it if I wouldn't do anything about it? And that's
That's obvious. The answer is yes.
Yeah, and I really felt like I would really regret that. I'd have to at least see what's in there and what is unfolding. So I was in a training with someone and we facilitated a few sessions, and it was very fruitful and meaningful and beautiful to work together. So we decided, or we had these conversations of like, should we maybe do something together? So we founded a company called Vox Agora that focuses on exactly that, like facilitation, using deep democracy, and creating these spaces, especially for teams of conflict, to facilitate spaces that enable people to work better together.
Beautiful. Where does the name come from?
The name, this is based on the idea of the circle where people come together, where people gather to have conversations.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Is there a website?
There is a website.
Okay, we will put it in the show notes because that's interesting, and I will look into it myself too. So that part I didn't discover, and so I will. And where do you think the deep resonance, because for the listener, they only have the luxury to listen to this podcast, but I can obviously see that, this is also the second love of your life when you're talking about it. Where does this deep resonance come from? Where does it resonate? Why does it resonate so deep within?
That's a really beautiful question. What I experienced for a long time is that sometimes I walk into spaces where there are people and I can feel, for example, a conflict, but I feel it in my body. Or I can taste it in my mouth, that I feel like it tastes like something's going on here. So that has been happening for a long time. Or I would be maybe in a meeting myself where I had the physical feeling of like something feels completely off, but I didn't give it any words. So what normally happened is that I felt like, this is really off, and then maybe 2-3 days later, you have that coffee machine chat, someone is saying, oh, this meeting, and then you blah, 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 you have this whole conversation about it. And then I realized, oh, okay, so I wasn't the only one feeling off. Okay, there was something, but I didn't really, basically in the moment itself, I didn't trust it. And I didn't know also what am I going to do about it? Should I just raise my hand and say, I'm feeling physically off? Okay, then, I had no tools. And then deep democracy, in a way, basically it gave this, I would call it like hypersensitivity, a tool, and also a method. And now I can use exactly that if I feel like antsy on my chair, to really pay attention to that, to be like, okay, something, like maybe we're getting really close to what we need to discuss, or the group is getting really close to what they need to discuss, because I'm getting so restless that we might be close. Or if I'm suddenly feel like, my God, like I'm facilitating something, I might as well fall off my chair, I'm so tired. So I feel like it's this dread, or like, so I'm paying very close attention to my own physical reaction and everything else in the group. But it gave me a method. So now I'm basically I can use that. And that's been a total gift. And it took some time. I mean, it wasn't immediately like that, but then
of course,
I got that mirrored back as well by my trainer. I was like, okay, I can really do something here with that.
Do you believe that it also resonates so much because it helps you also it's also applicable for yourself? So it's not only applicable for teams around you and in that kind of dynamic where you're the facilitator, but you're also the facilitator of your own life. And are there situations which you moved forward and you didn't speak up or didn't make clear, or does it help you also for yourself as a facilitator of your own life? Because that's what we are, right? We for facilitate our own life. We
facilitate our own life, but I think deep democracy is basically for anything that's in a group. And a group is, 2 people, you're basically a group. I mean, you're not alone.
Yeah, no, but what I mean, I understand that, but we have also more multiple facets and personalities in one, just being one person, right? And I can also imagine that while navigating through life, and the reason that it resonates so much comes 9 out of 10 also because it could have helped ourselves also. Resolving conflict with ourselves to feel safe and have tools to resolve conflict in ourselves or resolve. So that's. Do you think there's a sort of alignment with that?
I feel it less in myself. It's more like a coming home to myself and actually integrating gifts I have. And actually be able to do something with it. Things that I maybe in the past saw more as an annoyance.
Yeah, like because
I feel all of this stuff, but I don't know what. Like, I feel so much, but I don't know what to do with it.
So now you experience it as a gift, but maybe it was before it was a curse. Or sometimes.
100%.
Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that.
High sensitive and oh no, not again.
Yeah, I also didn't know. I mean, okay, I feel all these emotions. I feel incredibly tense and uncomfortable in my body, but I don't know what am I going. So what? Like literally, so, I mean, I don't know what it means. I don't know what to do with it. So that is a sort of an integration that I'm going through at the moment. It helps me otherwise. So for example, because there's the element of conflict, and I generally say I like conflict, but now I'm really trying to be very mindful with it. So for example, I have 2 stepsons, teenagers, and if there's like some real tension, they get loud, and I'm like, it's so tempting to check out for them, for me to, just walk off, just do something different, get up from the table, start doing the dishes. And now I'm really like, okay, like A, I want to model behavior to them, but B is also, okay, you say you like conflict, here you go. Stay in it, like just stay in it, like don't check out.
And I think it wasn't clear for me how to ask my question, so I was looking for my question, but I think I meant exactly this. It's a sort of two-way. It's a sort of internal mirror and a mirror towards the dynamic where you have to deal with, right? But that does also something with our own, nervous system also, right? And because. Yeah, who wants to stay in conflict? 9 out of 10 people don't.
Yeah.
Or they use conflict to deal with their internal conflict. That's what's happening on the street. Then all of a sudden, you see, that's I love to observe people like you do. And also I love to observe behavior in busy, crowded streets. And then you see sometimes a person is really on her or his way. 9 out of 10, unfortunately, it's a man. On his way, and he does this with his shoulder, so you see it happening, and I'm like, what it does this, people can't see it, does the shoulder a little bit wider, and then deliberately touches the shoulder of another. It wasn't necessary, and then in a crowd space. What I always find fascinating is what is happening inside of someone, that someone feels the need, the urge to have to do that, to have to deliberately annoy another person. What is the internal annoyance that you need? Where that comes from? It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think also to give people a bit the benefit of the doubt, I think sometimes it's on purpose, and sometimes, I mean, especially because you talk about men, I'm not particularly tall. Which I generally don't notice, but I sometimes, notice it in the Netherlands because I'm surrounded by people that are way taller. And some men, I think sometimes in crowded spaces actually don't notice me. And I find that really fascinating. Well, I'm like, how can you just not have the lack of spatial awareness maybe? You just don't actually notice other people around you. I find that a really interesting. I think there is something around spatial awareness. I think a lot of people, so also within running, if you ask people, how do you land on your feet? When you ask that question, try it. People look at their feet because they don't feel where they're on the ground. And that's pretty worrying. I mean, this is your connection to the ground.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So how much maybe in your head are you that you don't feel your feet?
True. Hey, now to the moment that we've met. only to find out a few days later in our pre-conversation. That for me was really interesting about being high sensitive without really can pinpoint at that moment when we met. I get instantly curious. I think I didn't walk around the park and was really straightforward, like, okay, we have to go in a podcast, right? Only to discover in our pre-video call that I don't believe in coincidence. I believe more in synchronicity, and sometimes the universe is bringing us together at a certain level of moment in our lives, and our path crossed, and I became curious. Hey, Michiel, you don't know her, you don't, but I became curious, and you have to be in my podcast, and then in the pre-video call we discovered, hey, we've discovered something interesting. Before we dive in, tell me a little bit, tell our listeners, of course, a little bit about your upbringing and about your youth. It is about the journey.
Yeah, I think actually now when the weather is getting colder, it always reminds me a lot of home. So I grew up in the German Alps, and just like the most gorgeous surrounding, fantastic nature. I think so much joy and space, a lot of freedom, and the most beautiful and actually most amazing parents. And I can honestly say that because all my friends always, gave me the feeling that my parents are just incredible. So they're really some of the most beautiful humans I have met. And of course there is the part, and it's also what we discovered in the intro call, that I'm adopted, or that we both are. So I've been adopted when I was 1 day old. From my biological parents are also German, and then I came after 1 day to the parents I grew up with, so my parents, and lived there for 8 years. And then after 8 years, my parents adopted another child, so my brother, who was then 6. So I was 8 years on my own. And if you zoom out, I have a lot of siblings from my biological parents. And that always gets a bit complicated. Usually when I have to explain it to people, I have to literally make a little drawing, because immediately I have 2 brothers with the same name. it gets, you think like, how can this happen? Yeah, they're not related. So, there are a lot of possibilities.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It's a sort of family constellation where I see all the kind of Playmobil puppet, and then like, okay, what? But you are, so to keep it as safe for the listener. So you were adopted when you were 1 day old as baby. Then after 8 years, adoption of your brother, who was then already 6 years. So how was that for you?
It's funny. I don't have so many memories of it, but which probably says it all. What I really remember. So I don't remember how that was for me. He grew up with his mom. So I do remember that he occupied our dad a lot, which is natural if you think of it, because he suddenly had this dad. But I remember sort of, I guess I'm jealous. I'm sure I was jealous. So I remember sort of pictures of him sitting on my dad's lap. And what I really remember is him arriving. There was tons of snow. It was winter, and we played outside, and we had no common language.
No.
I was 8, I spoke German, and he was 6, and he spoke Polish. And I remember this sort of, you're just kids, right? You just play in the snow, you have fun, but you have no actual language. I remember his mom being there and with a translator. So also visiting, actually going to Poland beforehand to just visit him first and see where he grew up and his mom. So it was also, both adoptions have been open adoptions. My adoption was the first adoption that was open in that region I grew up in. So open means that if it's a closed adoption, the parents don't know where the child comes from. Even if you've been told you adopted, only by the age of 18 you would have the legal rights to even look at the documents. But you have no idea where you come from, who your biological parents are, any whatever. Are they still alive?
Anonymized.
You don't know, have they had, drug issues, or what's the story? why you adopted. Like there's, no one knows, and also your parents can't really help you because they don't know either where you came from. And so in my case, it was completely open, which also meant like I have met a lot of my biological family, which is...
How does that feel? Because you say biological family, but does it feel as family for you?
Does it feel as family? Yeah, this is a really interesting question. And I had a conversation about this with my mom, because I have so many siblings.
And when you say mom, it's your adoption mom, but she feels she is really your mother.
These are my parents. So it's my parents are my adoption parents, and biological is the biological.
Biological, clear.
Good question. No, I had a conversation with my mom about that. Like, all these siblings, like where do you place that? And she said, well, like just see how it feels. Some people feel, if related or unrelated, they feel like what you said. You have a sister. Your friend became you adopted each other. Yeah. This is how it feels.
Yeah, and downstairs in the hallway, you see all pictures of my friends, and they are all chosen family friends. And now I'm becoming more and more involved in certain communities, and I feel a real bonding feeling of connection. Yeah. And I believe that is the feeling of being surrounded in a family. Yeah. So family is what feels as family, right?
100%. And I see it, in that sense, I see adoption as a gift, because I think a lot of people that are not adopted, they have their family and it's fixed, and it is family. And, there's enough people who would...
Fixed or trapped.
Exactly, and some people break with their families, right? But it's really, really hard. And I think in my case, there is more space. And, it can also be that I meet one person like once or twice in my life, and then, this is then a sibling. I also don't really know what to do with that. Like it's, and then, people will also get children, so I guess this family will only grow. So what am I going to... I'm sure there's so much family that I have never met. There's also brothers and sisters that I know of, where I know they don't know that I exist. So there's a lot. There's a lot. And it is...
Are you okay with that?
With this part, I'm a little bit less okay. I think it is the denying of my existence. I'm not okay with that. No, I'm not okay with that, because it sort of has happened before in my life. So I feel like don't know what to do about it, and I think it will unfold itself. I'm really glad that I'm very close to one of my sisters. By close, I mean we also had this conversation in the pre-call. Like it's an intentional creation of a relationship, and it's two adults forming this, like trying to figure out what does it actually mean to be sisters.
Good question.
Yeah. So I think it's also beautiful, because in a lot of normal, let's say, relationship maybe in love relationships, we have these questions, we have models and ideas and expectations, but even in normal friendships, friendships, they also come and go. And when is something an end? Like, how do you do that? How do you transition? How do you
evolve together or grow apart?
Yeah, or take a break, or or say, okay, we're currently doing different things. So this, to be more intentional about this journey, is, I think that's the silver lining, the gift part of it. And of course, there can also be other parts where it can be complicated, and I think an adoption itself is traumatic. So it comes, it has a heavier side to it, and it's a whole package.
What is growing up with such a loving, caring parents? What is the difficult part being adopted for you? What does it mean for you? I'm also adopted. But grew up in very unhealthy situation. Left parental home when I was 13. Start planning to leave parental home when I was 12. My Northern Star was when I'm 13, I will be away, and kept my word. And that doesn't come from a luxury. But for you, growing up with caring, loving parents, as you just told me. What is for you the more difficult part of it?
I think it was kind of interesting because I grew up in also such an, everyone I knew was adopted. Let's say my whole family. It's the most normal.
Yeah.
My brother's adopted, I'm adopted. It's the most normal thing.
Yeah.
Openly talked about. My parents totally supported me seeing my biological parents for the first time, some siblings. So, drove me there. Like, it's the most normal thing in the world.
Yeah.
Which meant for me that it took forever to realize that there is a level of trauma. For me, how it showed up was to realize that I have real trust issues, and that trust is such a key challenge and topic. And it still sometimes shows up. I think not too long ago, a really close friend said to me that sometimes I still give her the feeling like I don't trust her. And that's painful. Like, I really don't want her to get the feeling that I don't trust her. But trust doesn't come easy for me. It's something I always need to focus on. I always need to work on. And it's the outer trust, but it's also, of course, then when you really look at it, it's also trusting yourself. And it got way better, but like to see that it, like, it's basically to know that the adoption is so deep, and because it is, I of course have no memories of it. So it is, at some point I started therapy because I was like, I want some professional help and someone who is actually confident in helping me to uncover something that is beyond and before any memory. It is something that has a massive impact on my life. And like, I call this like the glasses, right? We all wear certain glasses, how we see and perceive the world, if we're aware of them or not. So it's someone who helps me to understand the glasses I look through and maybe change some of the layers. Although I have actually no conscious memory of this whatsoever, but it sort of colors in how I perceive the world.
As you can imagine, this resonates deeply, right? Thank you for sharing. And it does. We've discovered in our pre-conversation, I've shared with you the book, Primal Wound, and I was 48 when I started reading that book. And before that, my pitch was always, well, I have been given away as baby when I was 10 days old. I'm adopted when I was 6 months old. And then rough youth and left parental home. But yeah, as a baby at being adopted, yeah, that's no problem. Only to discover that via the book, it made me conscious about a concept called separation trauma. So which occurs, and especially when it's profound, when, here it comes, a baby within the first 12 months gets separated for the best intentions of the world, but from their mother, being born in the womb for 9 months, separated after birth within the first 12 months, has severe impact for the rest of your life on your central nervous system, neural pathways, and everything in your body. And that was for me very confrontational, because I always felt, although I have a very life force, also a very heavy feeling inside of me. Only to come to understand that the baby comes in, I came in when I was 6 months old, with deep grief. But the adoption parents are very happy, because, hey, we have our baby. But the baby comes in with deep grief. It's being given away, whatever the intention is. And then it's stored in our implicit memory. So it's there. Our body is telling it. Our body is telling us very early if something feels off or not safe. That's where the sensitivity comes from. It's not out of luxury. It's out of sort of it's a sort of survival mechanism. Hey, something is off. It helps me too, in teams, and I'm a former Marine, also in unsafe situations. I predicted it already, but also with a lot of partying, I always recognize, okay, something in the whole atmosphere is changing. We have to leave because it's getting out of hands very quickly. We're going to get our coats and we are out of here. And they're like, come on. My friends like, we're in the party. And no, I'm going to leave. You two, we're together. We're going to leave. Doesn't come from luxury. It's about the body. It's nudging us unconsciously. It becomes consciously during an unsafe situation. For instance, a friend might be on her or his way out in the friendship and you don't want it, and I pushed it away. I was like, So it's so deep, and it has but the first 12 months are critical because of the fact that soothing, bonding, postnatal bonding with the mother. And you look at her I looked my mother for the last time. I think she gave me away. I'm registered 10 days after birth. Assume that I'm born on the 13th of July. But it couldn't be very much older because I was really baby. And I'm okay with that. It's the 12th or the 11th. I don't care. It's around that. But to never look again, in my situation, in the eyes of my mother. So the self-soothing for me became getting eyeball attention of a lot of women around me. And luckily, I get my fair share of that, only to discover that it wasn't about that. It was about soothing, because it gave me a proof of existence from, hey, you see, I exist. It's acknowledge each other. When we see each other, what we truly are doing is we acknowledge each other's existence. To come back to my second principle, which I practiced in this morning, what I called a shower, although the podcast starts with me, ultimately it's not about me. But because it's so close to me, that's the reason why I elaborated so deep about it. Does it resonate?
No. I feel really like almost spacey, because it's like, I feel like I can feel literally how we're dropping in. No, thanks for elaborating. I think there's a few things about my parents which make them special. I mean, many, but like they're Buddhist. So I grew up with a lot of meditation, and also parents that have always done like the work. And they met Buddhism exactly in that time I came to them. So it's been, been quite some years. So they've been always practicing, spiritual beings, not taking things so personal. So I think I had really the best possible, like, care and understanding, and people, who really work on them. I was definitely not an easy young child. And then also their ability to be brave, to allow their kids to meet with their biological parents, and to not be, or to never, I don't think they ever felt threatened by it, but if they did never showed it. They really gave me and my brother the space to have also those relationships and see, and to really explore without making about them. And I think that's incredibly brave. And I had the opportunity to have with my biological parents have never been together. And I met them when I was young, but also met them again as adults. And I had with both of them separately conversations about the adoption and how that was, and, the birth, and also difficult questions. So I think very thankful. And I promised myself, if, shit hits the fan in my life, I will, therapy will be one of the first things to go to, because it's been very useful. And when I was a little detour, but when I was in therapy, I didn't have any contact with my biological father, I think, in 20 years. And she asked me, do you have open questions to him? I said, and would you feel regret if you never get to ask these questions? And I never had these difficult conversations and open conversations with him. And so I realized I do. So I picked up a contact. And that was very scary because you might be abandoned again. What if he never reacts? You write a letter, what if he never reacts? Then you have basically the same wound all over, just as an adult. So it was super scary. He reacted, we met up. And of course that is, nerve-wracking. My parents actually drove me there, which was also really sweet because they were very like, what do you need? Like, how does support look like? Really sweet. And we had a 3-hour walk. And luckily my biological father had also done some work. So he was like, okay, we have this time now. I'm ready. Like, ask me absolutely everything. And that, that was so healing. Like, to really have the opportunity to look someone in the eye and like tell your story, who you are, and like also, say what you're angry about, or memories you have of like, where I was a young child and he had invited me somewhere and I was there, and I remember the feeling that I'm in a room and realize people look at me, adults, and they talk, and I realized, oh, people must have, like, they don't know that I exist. And I was like, why am I there? So I told him also things like that, like, like the not acknowledging that I exist. I have no idea why I was in that space. I was just a child. So I really don't understand that. But like, so to your question, if I'm angry that some siblings don't know that I exist, yes, I am, because he's repeating that. I'm angry on that with him. Definitely. Like, acknowledge that I exist. That's I feel like the minimum I can ask. But it's like to have an adult in front of you and you have that open conversation, that was incredibly healing. Like, really like a closing of an actual chapter. And I think the most beautiful moment was in the end, like my parents picked me up, we arranged a meeting point, and he was there as well. And he went to them and thanked them.
Wow.
And that has been, I think, I'm tearing up now, but I think that's been so beautiful to see. Like, they haven't seen each other they knew each other before the adoption, but I don't know, maybe they saw each other once since I was born, and probably I'm 40 now. These are the moments in my life where I think if this would be a film, I would definitely want to watch it.
Beautiful.
So very thankful also. I think my parents have been a massive gift. I know things can pan out really differently. So really thankful for their maturity and their ability to really create space. I think that is the source also why I'm always working on myself. This is really how I grew up with, two human beings that are the most open I've ever met. Like they can ask, like there's no judgment. They can ask open question. And they have always been doing that, and they always learn, they always develop. Like, I really look up to that.
You've mentioned something, and it's about closing the chapter. Do you believe it is about closing the chapter or accepting?
It felt maybe like closing in a sense, because that was also the theme of the therapy at that moment. Like, imagine you would never see each other again. Would you be okay with that? So and also I don't feel my biological parents as parents. I feel as, they created my life. So for me, it's also okay some closure is okay there. I'm quite selective on like how much I maybe also want them in my life. Like, it's, they also made the choice not to have me and theirs. And this is a fact, right? Mm-hmm. You are given away as an adoptive child. You're very, very much wanted, but you're also given away. This is just the complexity of that reality, let's say, of my reality. So there is a level of closure. And I think the acceptance is then more how I let things land in myself, what I do with that, parts I might accept about myself. Also give some more space to anger sometimes now. I think it's also okay to feel, for example, anger that that literally, like, actually someone literally didn't want you. And, you know, for the best reasons. I mean, really, I don't blame them. I had, honestly, my childhood was, I would not want to swap it for anything in the world, honest, that 200%.
No, but the fact
but
still
it is both and, right? It's this complexity, which I, by now, also feel like explains for myself the complexity I have, like these total extremes, because it really literally within me coexists. And I feel that coexistence and that stretch vividly. So it's this total both and, like you've more than wanted and not. And that is just what it is.
It's so complex.
Yeah. It's complex, but at the same time, I'm thankful because I have when things get mirrored to me in my life, or I see like topics come up, and if I really dig deep, and I'm like, it's like after our conversation, I was like, oh no, is it again this adoption thing? Like, oh, damn it! It's like, or if something with trust comes up, and I'm like, it's not again the adoption, is it? Like, but it makes it sometimes easier. Like I generally don't think about it. It's not that I walk around thinking that I'm adopted, and then I get these situations in life and these little mirrors, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. You know, it's annoying, but it's also the gift in here is that I know, I know what to look at, and I know the trust in every color, direction, shape, or form comes up,
and it's part of you, who you are, and where you came from, and what you have to grow through. And the thing I discovered also while reading the book, and that's why it was so resonating, because the first part was about what is primal wound, what is meant by separation trauma. The second part was how it manifests, and that really became confronting. And 95% of a generic written book was for me specifically resonating and applicable to my thoughts, behaviors, patterns. And one of the things was always testing unconditionality in relationships. So pushing back and pulling back, pushing back, pulling back, pushing back, pulling back. And always like, okay, how far can I go? Can I get away with it? And due to the fact that I love partying and everything which comes along, so how? But also unconditionality. Ultimately, it went so far that I tested life on itself, my own life, with unhealthy coping mechanisms, only to discover that I got a severe health warning, which made me stop right away there and then. To decide, okay, but Michiel, what do you want? You got life from my birth mother, who I love really deeply. I've never met her. I didn't look for her, but I feel I get 3 times life. So life in and on itself, a chance for a better life by giving me away as baby to an orphanage for adoption. And the third is my life force, which I now feel deeply the sense of empowerment. And there comes the name Journeys of Empowerment. And the logo where you're looking at, the logo under the tree, the banyan tree, the logo of Journeys of Empowerment is inspired by the 24 spokes in the Indian flag.
Ah.
And
that's nice.
Yeah, Indian.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's all... And that's
like also, I mean, it's also the circle, right? I feel this feels like a total full circle.
Full circle, yeah. And wow, how does it feel to speak so openly, and especially also in a podcast, about this specific part of your life?
Yeah, that I've been grappling with that the whole week. Like, how open do I want to be? Because I can, it's easy to say I'm open about the adoption, right? I could have an A, I don't know, tattooed on my forehead. Like, I wouldn't mind. It's not a secret in any way, never been. But I think I decided this week that, we all have topics. and it is, I think, a gift to be able to look at them. That's one thing. So we might, I hope this is a reminder to people to look at their stuff, to not walk away from it. There's a lot to gain. The other thing is, like, I think maybe someone else hears that who might be adopted or have any kind of more complicated family situation. It might be an invitation to start looking at that, and they might, get a lot of sort of that mirror effect of like seeing that things, okay, like, to get a bit closer to the source of where things come from in your life that show up. Because if topics show up a lot, or you see them from different corners the whole time, and they're really there as an invitation to not look away. These are the things you can't avoid. Or, look around you, right? We see this so often that people like have a relationship, doesn't work out, they break up, they meet the next person. What do we do as humans? We repeat the pattern. So as long as you haven't looked at the pattern, you repeat the pattern.
True.
So I decided to share about it openly because A, it's not a secret, and B, well, I love going deep, and I hope it's just an invitation for others to, whatever your pattern may be, and we all have them, look at it. And sometimes it's really obvious big traumas, something happened that you can't avoid, and sometimes
obvious
it's small.
Or conscious?
Well, sometimes it's obvious because maybe something,
really
happened
to you. Yeah. But
and
also conscious or unconscious.
And then there's this, the small T, right? There's the big T, like the obvious or something, experience, something traumatic in that sense. And then there's the less conscious,
implicit stored in your memory.
And it's a lot. There is a lot of childhood situations, right? So, yeah.
Since we met each other at the Culture Code, it almost sounds as if I'm advocating for my sister, which I am. And luckily, it's my podcast, so I'm free to do.
Well, you promote good people, so.
she's but it's easy to promote her. So Sasha, I love you. Is while being around Sasha and moving forward to all kind of group and community conversations, I noticed that belonging is a very big theme in my life. Which I never was conscious about because, I thought I was like this instead of this. I thought like, I belong here. And because of the fact that I never been deliberately excluded. But I became more and more conscious each and every conversation that actually I never felt a deep down belief and feeling of belonging. Anywhere. Because when I'm in India, I have some genetic similar markers, but my whole demeanor, is typical from here.
Yeah.
When I'm here, luckily I don't feel exclusion, but ultimately I'm not one of them. And then all of a sudden I noticed in my behavior that it is nurtured, but would my behavior also be nature if I grew up somewhere else? So how much in my behavior, daily behavior, is nature versus nurture?
Yeah.
But now I'm really curious. You grew up with similar genetic markers around you.
Yeah.
And with I think, with the temperature, the culture, everything around you. Now my question to you is, where do you belong?
This question is a real riddle. And I have noticed that I moved away from Germany when I was 20, lived in London, now the Netherlands. And I think the riddle of having a challenge with belonging, I solved by putting myself always in situations where I'm. So I don't know where. I really don't know. I can't really answer this question. But I've noticed that the way I set up my own life is also by putting myself into the situations where Then I move here, then I learn Dutch. Am I Dutch? No. I've been so long away from Germany. When I go there, it's also, so it's kind of in that sense nowhere. And the other side of nowhere is everywhere.
That's strong.
So it's the both end. So there's nothing bad with that. And I think many people who move away, for example, anywhere, at some point you don't belong either, or so I think the solution to me has been this self-love part of like belonging way more to myself, and feeling really right at home within myself. So also I'm excited in the future. I don't know where I will be, but like feel right at home. I have this, I have 2 stepsons, as I mentioned earlier, and like that has also been like to really accepting actually that build-up of that family. So this takes time. These are not the things that come like super easy, super obvious to me. This sort of, or being in groups where I always have to remind myself that like, sometimes when I'm in a group, I don't know if everyone has this feeling that they don't quite belong, or is this more stronger in me? I don't really know. I probably will never find out. Some humans behave to me like they feel like so at home in spaces where I'm like, is this more like, is this again this mirror of this adoption story that is this why I'm not really, like, I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. Put it to the test. You have seen me moving around at the Culture Code. What is your opinion about that one?
Yeah, but that's also...
What did you observe?
Yeah, but there you are fish in the water and you kind of, this is also like you being like out there. Yeah, but this can also be, these are also the aspects you can kind of train.
Yeah.
I think it gets more tricky if you, for example... It is the question of... to give an example... Sometimes when I see people with their siblings, I'm like, oh, like they are like unconditional, always there for each other kind of siblings. And I had once, and we made a fire at my parents. My brother was there. It was not long ago, maybe 2 years ago. So we all as adults, and we were talking. It was a really deep, beautiful conversation. And I look and I think, oh, this is probably how other people feel with their siblings. And it's not that, my brother and I grew up together, but we didn't have so many years together. I left quite early. I moved abroad. It's not that we like often see each other. No. We see each other generally once a year. So I have these moments, and I know that other people don't have that. They don't sit with their family and think, oh, this is how maybe a family looks or feel like. So I do have those. I do have those, but it's also always interesting to see like what plays, how do I really feel? Can I just relax? Can I just acknowledge that and just relax into it? It's just like just being aware of it and just like, maybe let it flow through a little bit. There's not a problem. It's just like an awareness. Wow.
We went deep, eh?
I'm not surprised.
No, me neither. It's really, really, really interesting how layered it is. And I really admire your openness. So thank you very much for sharing. And yeah, wow. I have to process a lot. I've also prepared a question, since we're heading towards the end of our conversation, but it brings it kind of together. So when you think back to the 14-year-old you, who first laced her shoes, what were you really running toward? So you started running when you were 14. What were you really running toward?
I think the first thing that pops up is me. Like running is and has become many different things on the way, but it is really a practice, and it always brings me back to me. Yeah, I think that's it. It's just back, it's to me. And that was already in the very early beginnings. That 14, 15-year-old version already noticed that it's like a nervous system regulation. Of course, I didn't have those words for it, but that it helps me deal with all the pressure and emotions I might feel. So instead of then coming home from school, exploding at home because it was too much and I was adjusting myself and all these, everything, all the expectations from myself and the outside, I could just go for a run. And somehow that always helped. It's also the same time I discovered meditation. So there's these two go hand in hand for me. So it's the physical and the spiritual.
Beautiful. Mirjam, thank you very much for our conversation. I hope it is a starting point for many more one-on-one conversations or events. I will for sure put the company name in the website and if people want to reach out to you, can they reach out to you via LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah,
right.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah. And thank you very much for your openness. It's one conversation of resonance, high resonance.
Yeah, thank you for the space and for the questions. I could really feel how we like dropped. It's interesting how you then you don't notice anything around you anymore. Very, very interesting. I don't often have that, so thank you for the space and incredible questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening and for staying with this conversation. If something from this episode lingered, consider sharing it with someone who might need it right now. And if you choose to subscribe or leave a short review, you help these conversations reach others who are still searching for clarity, direction, or belonging. That is how the circle widens, quietly, one listener at a time. Keep going, keep becoming you.